In the second part of this video, I'm going to be focused on questions 15, 17, 18, 19, and 24. These are the ones that most resemble what you may see on your test tomorrow. In this first problem, we're asked to solve for y. So we want this term by itself. So inverse operation, we're going to subtract the 6x from both sides. The 6x's cancel out as a 0, leaving us with negative 3y equals negative 9 minus 6x. To get the negative 3 and the y separated, we're going to want to divide, because whenever a variable has a coefficient, multiplication is implied. So the inverse is to divide. Every single term is going to be divided by that coefficient of negative 3. The negative 3 is reduced out to a 1, leaving us with 1y is equal to a positive 3 plus 2x, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. In this next one, we're asked to solve for h. So we want to get the term 2h isolated. We need to remove the 3k. We want the whole thing to move, so we're going to subtract the 3k from both sides. When we do that, the 3k's cancel out to a 0, leaving us with 2h is equal to a negative 5 minus 3k. I cannot combine them because they are not like terms. To get the h and the 2 separated, we have to remember that multiplication is going on between them. So the inverse is to divide. Once again, every single thing will be divided by 2. That makes my 2's on the left reduce out to 1, leaving me with 1h is equal to negative 5 over 2, because that cannot be reduced, minus 3k over 2. Or, because they do have the same denominator, you could write it as h equals negative 5 minus 3k, all divided by the 2. This right here, number 18, is going back to what was on our first test, combining like terms. So here I see I have a d. This is also a d. I want to include the signs in front so I know what to do with those coefficients. Negative 5d plus 4d, so negative 5 plus 4 is a negative 1. The variable will stay. Then we have 6 minus 3, which is a negative 3. And then you can rewrite this as negative d minus 3. And this next one, here we want to remember to distribute. Remember that means the negative 5 is going to be shared with the 2. And the negative 5 is going to be shared with that 6m. The minus 3 is not in the parentheses, so it's not going to be multiplied by anything. So here I see negative 5 times 2 is a negative 10. Negative 5 times 6m is going to be negative 30m. My negative 3 is still there. Next, I look at my like terms. I have a negative 10 and a negative 3. The sign, make sure you include. That becomes a negative 13. My negative 30m is still there. Cannot combine them. They are not like terms. In this next problem, we're asked to evaluate, and we have our values for x, y, and z. Remember, when you see this one on your test, you may have a negative that's being squared, so it's really important that you remember to use those parentheses. So for my y, I'm going to use parentheses to hold the spot, squared, plus 3. Instead of the z, I'm going to use parentheses to hold the spot, minus, instead of x, I'm going to use parentheses to hold the spot. Then I go back and I look, okay, if I have y is being represented by 3, which means in my parenthesis is going to be 3. Next, we have z. Z is being represented by a negative 7. So in my parentheses, I have a negative 7. And then at the end is that minus x. My x has a value of 5. So in the parentheses, I have a 5. From here, you could type this into your calculator, or here I'm going to go ahead, type it in, and we get negative 17.